Okay, to start out with, to look at this idea of creativity, I want to take you back to the 1950s. Will you go back in my time machine with me? We're in the 1950s. Get in the zone. Now tell me, if you're in 1950s, you're picturing a piano lesson. What does it look like? I really want you to tell me. What does this 1950s piano lesson, knowing nothing else about it, I mean, you're somewhere in Europe or the US, because most of us are, or North America, let's say. There's some Canadians in the room. Most of us are in those kind of areas. So let's picture that. We're roughly in the Western world. We're in the 1950s. And we're in a piano lesson. Julie said, I'm seeing a mean looking lady with a ruler in her hand. Rulers on hands come up a lot. But even, let's picture a nice teacher, okay? We've got someone who's not going to hit us with a ruler. What are they going to do? What are they going to teach us? Oh, Helen, great one. Middle C based instruction. Colin, black and white. I love that. It was black and white in my head. No, it was like sepia in my head. Yes. Okay, we're seeing something fairly plain, aren't we? Middle C based instruction, reading work, scales. Lots of running up and down of scales, yes. Anything else to be included? Do we see any improvisation? Do we see any creativity in the broadest sense of the word? I don't think so. Probably. Most likely. Right? This is where we get this idea of a traditional lesson from. It's traditional to the 1950s-ish, right? When we talk about a traditional lesson, which is kind of weird. So now, the reason it's weird is because we also tend to use that word synonymously with classical piano lesson. What does a classical piano lesson mean? And what does a traditional piano lesson mean? Do you think we use them interchangeably? I think we do most of the time. And yet, now we're going to go back further in our time machine. You ready? That's the sound it makes. And we're going all the way back to Beethoven's time. Now, we're not that lucky, okay? We're not going to have Beethoven as our teacher. We're not going to become part of the line. No, okay? But we're going to have a piano teacher. It's going to be a decent composer, someone like in a similar job description to Beethoven, similar career profile, but not famous, okay? What are our lessons like? What are we doing? We're in classical times. What are we doing in our lessons? What do we think? I don't think there's a ruler. There still could be a ruler, but let's leave the rulers out of this. It's definitely black and white now, Colin. And what's actually included in our lessons? Etudes. Yeah, probably. True. Yeah. Love these thoughts about the 1950s lessons. Awesome. Following formulas but being more dynamic. Interesting. Charlotte, that's my point. Composing, improvising. Yes, reading. Yes, playing. I mean, Bach had come back in by that time into vogue, so they were playing, the preludes and fugues, but they were messing with them. Yes, Angela, they were improvising. So what happened? I know I've asked this before, but what happened? How did we get from that to this 1950s lesson that we all picture? And we know what it looks like. How do we get from there to there? At some point along that journey, jazz happened. I'm not blaming jazz. Don't get upset, okay? Jazz is wonderful. But at some point along that journey, jazz happened, and then pop music happened, and all of this, okay? I'm giving it a very rough history vibe. And at some point, these things split, didn't they? The improv, and not so much the composing, but definitely the improv, it went over here with the jazz people. someone else brought up there in the chat. And then somehow it didn't get over here with our 1950s piano teacher and our sepia-toned floral carpet. That's what I'm picturing. So what happened? How? I'm not expecting you to answer this. I know you can't. Maybe you can. If you can, please send me a detailed analysis of what exactly happened there. But at some point that did happen. And then we loop back through time to today, okay? So let's say some point in the 2000s, 2010s or something. I mean, gradually over that time, we decided, hang on a second, where did all the improv go? Where did all the composing go? How did it fall out of our lessons? Where did that go? And we looked around the room and we found some of it. And then we tried to put it back into our lesson suitcase. So we had this suitcase that was filled with books that we read and scales that we do. And they were all kind of dusty and all based around middle C. And we said, there's something missing from this suitcase. Let's put in the sparkles and the feather boas. Okay? And that's all the improv. And let's put in some pens and paper. Let's get people composing again. But at some point, there's no more room in our suitcase. When I believe what we should be doing is going all the way back. And saying, where did it detach? And let's treat it all as one again. They're not separate, defined things. We don't have to have an improv segment of our suitcase and a composing segment and a reading segment. We can melt them back together again. And while we're at it, let's take the jazz along for the ride. Little bits of it. Not expecting you to be experts, but let's take everything along. What do we think? Yes, Laurie, take out those compartments. Let's just roll everything up, Marie Kondo style, of course, very neatly, not rolled, that's wrong, folded in thirds, and put it all in together. Jeans and t-shirts and feather boas and everything. She would fold it all in thirds, wouldn't she? So let's do that. And get it all in there. Okay, that's what I think we should do anyway. And that's what I'm on a mission to get us to do. So the Creativizing Classics course, that's one step towards that. If members haven't checked it out, you can find it in the video library. What the Creativizing Classics course does is it thinks more laterally about this. How can we take our classical pieces and go back in time and make them creative? Bring the creative into the classical. Don't say that creative is this box that is only jazz and only pure improvisation. That's wrong. It can all be melted together. So that's what Creativizing Classics does. It gives you two simple ways that you can take a piece and make it creative work, no matter what it is. Yeah, Colin, stuff like that is a great step. So first year piece, so it's a beginner book, I'm assuming, and they encourage composition in a couple of places, which works well. I think we need to be more integrated than that. I love it when method book authors and people creating beginner books, they put in little tastes. Piano Safari does this too. They have little tastes of improv throughout, but I don't think it's enough improv. And I don't know that they're saying it is either. I haven't asked them this question, but it's a little taste of it, and that's great. That gives us an in. But that's not enough improv for every single lesson, which is what I believe we should be doing. Yeah. Okay, so let me know how I can help you when it comes to integrating these things. Where do you struggle? Does this sound like gobbledygook to you? Does it sound like it makes any sense? Can you see how you could make a classical piece a creative activity? Or do you need more help with that? Do you need more examples? Let me know how I can guide you on that. The best solution for members is to go into the course. Of course, if you're not a member and you're not familiar, that we do, you can find out more at vibrantmusicteaching.com. And that's where you'll get access to this course. And what I do in the course is I give you examples for lots of examples for 2 ideas. I'm not saying that those 2 ideas are the only way to creativize, only way to make something creative. What I'm saying is these are 2 ways you could do it, and here's so many different examples for that. Diane said step-by-step instructions. That is the best way to go through it, is in a course format like that. So and the webinar you could also watch as well, Diane. But having those 2 simple frameworks and applying them to lots of different pieces, I believe, for those of you who are feeling underconfident about this, I believe that's the best route for you to then take that and apply it to other stuff, because you're going to get so much confidence from seeing me do it with this piece and then this piece and then this piece and then this piece. There's loads of examples in there, but the same process applied to all of them. Does that make sense? That's how the course works. That's why I structured it differently than our regular courses. It's not a set of lesson plans. It's a framework for you to go through so that you learn how to do this to all pieces ever. Cindy, that's so interesting. She said, my lessons in the early 60s, if it's not on the page, it's cheating or just plain wrong. My lessons in the 90s are pretty much the same. I mean, I didn't try to play things off the page, but I don't think it would have been welcomed. Helen, that's interesting. So a different way of integrating improv into the approach of each piece as a default. We do that with harmonic analysis, but maybe the improv needs to be part of the approach too. Okay, so the main way I will give you is to scale it up, which Helen is in the Creativizing Classics course. So I'd suggest you go check that out. I'll give you a brief rundown here so that you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. Scale it up is where we take at a very simple basic level it can be, okay? So it's sort of harmonic analysis, but what we're going to do is we're going to just leave the left hand as it is, assuming the left hand is an accompaniment of some sort, or the right hand as it is if the melody is in the left, yeah? Take that left hand, leave it as it is, or combine it into chords. So you can take, if it's broken chords, you can just make them block chords to make it easier to play. Then you take the right hand and you ask, what are all the different notes that are used in the right hand? And your student will say G, and there's a G. No, G doesn't count twice, okay? Just count each one once. Then once they've counted each one once, they have a sort of scale. It might be a full scale. It's likely to be a pentatonic scale, something like that. And then once they have that palette of notes, they use that to improvise with. So you can play the left hand while they play the right. That may or may not be possible if you're teaching online, but if you're in person, that would be the first step. And then the opposite way as well. So they play the left, you improvise with the right, so they're hearing, little chunks of melodies and things that you create, so it's a good example. And then you're swapping back and forth like that. And once they have enough confidence, they can try playing the left while improvising in the right. With students who really struggle with that, I believe the best step, or the best thing I've found, is to get the student to play just a single note value. So define the note values, in other words. So let's say it's in 3/4 and you've been doing block chords for dotted minims, 3 beats in the left. Then you say, okay, you're only going to do crotchets, quarter notes in the right. And then you say you're only going to do quavers. And then you say, now mix crotchets and quavers. But you have to break it down like that for some students so that they know that the guardrails are there. I always think of a bowling alley with this. Because I have terrible coordination. I was never good at sports and things, including bowling. And bowling was like this kids' party standard thing to do. Probably still is, but definitely was when I was growing up. And I always wanted the bumpers on, the things you lift up at the side, because without them, I'm just not participating in the game. And probably I could have learned to bowl without them and I would have been better off, but I wanted them there. And so that's what gave me the freedom to at least try throwing the ball down the lane. So your students need that. A lot of them do. Colin mentioned earlier, like that he has a lot of students who don't actually want to be creative. And that's usually what the reason is. They say like, oh, I'm just not interested in that. I believe in opening every door to students, and sometimes that means, yes, pushing them a little bit to do things they're not super comfortable with. Now, I will say, the more you treat it as a normal par for the course part of lessons, I'm not like, oh, I've got this crazy thing to try today, but just like, this is what we do every week. The more you do that, the less students will react like that at all. But for the ones who still are saying, oh, this isn't really my style, or, I don't really want to do this, I want them to at least give it a bit of a try, and I want them to try it a little bit at least each year. Now, that's with composing. With improv, I'm just going to make them do it, because they just get used to it, and once they get used to it, they get over their fears and they all enjoy it. I haven't had a student who actually hates it if they become comfortable with it first. It's not usually a dislike, it's a fear. Does that make sense? So, putting up the bumper rails, is the important part there. Diane, the 2 frameworks I'm talking about are in the Creativizing Classics course. That's what I'm recommending that you watch, because if I give them to you here and detail them just verbally, it's not going to sound doable, and I don't want to put people off doing it, right? So I described the Scale It Up framework there a little bit, but it's so much better to see how I've done it for different pieces. So I highly recommend you dive into the course for that. Okay, keep hitting me up with your ideas for, as we say, Laurie, getting rid of the compartments in our suitcase, mixing the paint back together, baking cookies. What else can we mix together? Okay. Sorry, I'll stop with my silly analogies. We're going to do our website reviews next. And then I'll answer any more questions. Okay? So let's dive into some web reviews. By the way, if you haven't submitted your website for a review and you want to, you can do that inside the Facebook group. So that's Vibrant Music Studio Teachers. Just join the group there and you can submit your website for review. And make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you don't miss it. So that you join me on the show and you don't miss when I'm reviewing your site. Okay, here we go. No, here we don't go. You're on the wrong screen, lady. Okay, now here we go. Right, so this is Pink Door Piano. And this is Juju, who asked us to look at it. She seemed a bit apprehensive, so we're definitely going to be nice. Don't worry, Juju. She said she still needed to update the posts and things, and I don't know if that's still true because that was a few weeks ago, but I think this is a beautiful site, and I really like how it's styled, and often this is done really poorly on studio websites where people have tried to have a style and they haven't been defined enough about it and simple enough, but I think you've done that really, really well here. So there's really just a couple of fonts used, which is awesome, and then there's one highlight color, pink, and then there's this subtle grey, and that's consistent as well, and then there's the darker grey there, and that's it. Do you see what a difference that makes, everyone? It's just a palette of 3 colors. It's white, it's the darkish grey, black, 4 colors, the light grey and the pink, and that's it. Right? That instantly makes you look more professional, more put together, in my opinion. It doesn't have to be pink, right? This is quite a girly looking kind of idea, and that's great. Doesn't have to be like that. I would contest that pink has to be girly either, but it's quite young and fun and bubbly, which is awesome. So down the bottom we have a contact form and all of this, which is great. So I would just, because it is looking so great, I'm going to be picky. There's quite a big space here. I'm wondering if we can tighten that up and increase this font size right here. That would be the thing I changed there. Then open the door sounds great. And because of the name of your studio, I want to say I love it, but I think it's too unclear. So I think you can use open the door, but not as the button. I would make that something clearer, because I'm a parent arriving here. I'm busy. My toddler is crawling on my head. I've got jam on my fingers. Open the door. What door am I opening? What, am I going to pay for something? What's going on? And then I leave. Now that's pretty harsh, but that might happen. Honestly, people are so distractible. So it needs to say apply for lessons, or get in touch, or I don't love get in touch. Apply for lessons, contact me, something like that. Something where they know what they're doing with the button. People don't want to click on something when they don't know what it is. Yeah, everything else I think just looks awesome, so I'm not going to correct anything. I know you need more news. You already mentioned that yourself. Great, add more news. I think that'll be awesome. But you already have a good amount of text on here, which I think is great. So well done. We're going to look at one more. And this is Little Mozarts for Fun, which is Sam's site. Completely different look, right? And different content on the home page. So we've got this slider up the top here. Now, this first one has a button. So Sam, that should be on all of them, because when it's here, some of them are different too. I would make the button the same on every photo. Even if the photo is scrolling, you should be telling me to do one thing. I don't want choices. Don't give me choices. Check out our outdoor studio. No. I don't know what to do here. There's just kids. Register for Little Mozart. You need to pick one thing. It's not the only thing people can do on your site, but it's the majority, the thing you want the majority of people to do. So if that's Little Mozart's class, make it that. If it's outdoor studio, make it that. You know what I mean? Start piano today. It's probably this one, isn't it? Maybe? I don't know. But I wouldn't give them choice here. Choice in the menu, great. Choice in the call to action, no. Just tell them what to do. The people who click on this are the people who are not paying full attention and don't want to make decisions. So they're just going to follow where you lead them. It's great to have a video. I love when studios have videos. How cute is this? I love it. And I love the outdoor studio, and I just think, oh my gosh, way to highlight it too, put it everywhere. I just think people are going to be so inspired and think, wow, this is a teacher who is doing amazing things in these times. Not just saying, oh yeah, I'll keep going and these are my precautions, but this is really exciting. We're doing something awesome. Right? I think it's awesome. Okay. Yeah. So let's just have a quick look. We've got a lot of information up here, but I don't see any. Yeah, I think that's all looking good. In terms of what you have in the menu, I think it's all important to have, so I wouldn't cut anything. The phone number is fine to have up here. I'm not sure about the position of the logo, maybe give it a bit more space, but the main thing is that button. And also, I would maybe adjust this font. It's very rare, Sam, that I tell someone to choose an extra font, but I'm going to tell you to. I think you should have a separate font for your titles and menu than you have for your regular text. So I would just choose a second font that is for your regular text that I'm actually supposed to read. I would keep maybe this one here and choose the other one for this, and maybe something a bit plainer. And this isn't super stylized, but it is quite stylized as a font, so I would prefer to see it as the header font and then something a bit plainer and easier to read for the rest of your body. But I love all the photos. So great. That's why I keep scrolling up and down. They're awesome. Well done to our website reviewees. If you want your website reviewed, as I say, just sign up in the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers group. And while you're here, before I say goodbye, can you hit the like button on this video if you enjoyed it? I've had some weird YouTube comments lately. Lots of really lovely ones, but some weird ones too. So let's make sure teachers find the videos. And you hitting the like button does that because it tells YouTube that someone like you, a teacher, would like stuff like this. Right? So, which I hope you did. I really hope you enjoyed the show today and it gave you something new to think about. At the very least, I hope the time traveling was maybe somewhat entertaining for your Monday. And I hope you all get your Novembers off to a wonderful start. I'm going to see you next week.